What's up, guys? I hope you're having a great Friday coming up on the Shabbat. This is Pastor Adam here. And we're continuing this series talking about pinning the correct identity onto Jesus being the Lord God so it can help us revere who we're really dealing with here and eliminate this whole Jesus hippie syndrome, which allows us to continuously live not just a sinful life, because we've all sinned and fallen short, but there's difference in being a present tense sinner or future tense, like you're going to sin tomorrow and you're plotting and scheming it, and then having sinned, like having fallen short. And that whole process is called sanctification, where we start to feel remorse and we start to feel conviction. And that's us getting closer and closer to not being perfect, because there was only one that took the flesh form that was perfect, but being perfected, and seeking this perfection in our identities in the Lord God, Jesus. So check this out. So there was a Hollywood movie not too long ago, and the great thing about Hollywood movies, though, like anybody who's godless can be like, oh, so you're comparing your faith to this Hollywood movie. And so they think Hollywood movie, fiction, therefore this stuff, fiction, which obviously is absolutely foolish and absurd. But anybody will draw anything just to validate a godless argument, right? So basically, let's go here. So there was a movie called Tron, and it was actually a remake. So it was what Disney did, and I absolutely love this idea and this principle, which actually helps us grasp Abba, God Father, and the whole purpose behind a Godhead and the whole purpose behind Jesus. And so what this movie had was that there was an architect, designer, or actually a software designer, but he was like an architect to this world. And he had hardware and he had software, right? But he had no real ability to go into that digital world that he had, right? And he finally perfected it. He finally mastered it. He finally had this way to go in there. Now, I'm not saying that because in the beginning, Jesus, the Son of God, and also the Son of Man existed alongside. And obviously we have, in the beginning was the Word. So this is God's way. This is actually why it's crucial to have a relationship with Jesus. This is God's way, Jesus. So the Lord God is God's way to actually go in to his design, as it all is his design, and to interact in a form shape rather than, formless when we talk about the living God. Here's what's phenomenal about this going into the system and how God is very subtle in these ordeals. And the truth is subtle. I mean, and it's awesome. Once you pick up for these patterns, which God created within me, an ability to observe and to see these patterns stick out. And it's not really, it's always what the Bible's saying. Don't get me wrong, especially when you have an accurate, awesome translation. But it's what's going on. It's not like what it's saying. It's like, hey, Adam, hey, Tucker, hey, whatever, I'm throwing you these patterns. I want you to pick up on this stuff. And then once you pick it up, you're like, wow. So in Matthew 17, we have the transfiguration. What's awesome about this is that in this instance, we have in the New Testament, we have the prophets descending down to Jesus being the Lord God. So you have this act right here. This goes to Matthew 17. After 6 days, Jesus, the Lord God, took Peter, James, and his brother John and led them up on a high mountain by themselves. He was transformed in front of them, and his face shone like the sun. Even his clothes became as white as the light. Suddenly Moshe and Elijah appeared to them, talking with him. So the prophets actually come down. Why this is awesome is because the exact, I don't know if I want to say inverse, but the exact opposite, so the vice versa, let's put it that way, of this process happens, and this happens in Numbers. So in Numbers 12, 4-5, check this out. Suddenly the Lord God said to Moshe, Aaron, and Miriam, come out, you three, to the tent of meeting. And the three of them came out. The Lord God came down in a pillar of cloud and stood at the tent door and called Aaron and Miriam, and they came forward. Well, this lets us know right there, it literally says in verse 5, that he stood at the tent door. So this is a form. He's taking a form when he interacts with them. So here in the New Testament, you actually have prophets descend down to Lord God. And in Numbers 12, Old Testament, you have Lord God descends down to prophet. Awesome. Have a great week.